Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Photo Department. This episode's a little unorthodox, a little bit different. I have notes here because I didn't want to ramble on for 20 minutes, and I wanted to make sure I had some important points that I wanted to share with you, and I didn't want to lose my place. This is the first time I've ever really written notes for an episode. Usually I just go off the cuff, so I'm sorry if the title might seem a little bit misleading. I'm not going to go into the philosophy and ethics of being a documentary photographer, especially at protests, but I am going to speak to the current protests and the continuation of the civil rights movement, which is what we're in right now. It never really ended because certain people in this country don't have civil rights, mainly Black Americans. I've been going to protests since they started in Oakland, which is where I live and have been living for over a decade. Oakland is my home, and it's where my roots are, and I have seen this city change, mostly for the worse, sometimes for the better over the last decade. My first instinct when these protests started happening was I gotta grab my cameras, I gotta grab my video camera, and I gotta go to these protests and take photos and document everything because I want to show the world what's going on in Oakland, and I want to be a part of the conversation and a part of the movement of people that are trying to bring to light what's happening here. And I suspect a lot of you photographers out there in YouTube land also felt the same way, and some of you may have acted on those impulses and gone to protests with your camera and taken photographs of protesters and marches and speeches and all of that. I understand that impulse intimately. I know exactly how you're feeling, and I need you to take that feeling and put it aside for a second and take a look at this moment and what it really means. I think it's very important to step aside and allow Black photographers to document this moment in the same way that a white director or screenwriter can't really write the experience of a Black character. As a white photographer, you really can't tell the experience of Black people in America like you think you can. I know you want to document this, I know you want to be there and you want to get those images, but I think it's much more important to allow those Black photographers to be the voice of what's happening. And I know I'm going to get a lot of pushback for that, and I don't regret it. It's fine. If you want to be mad at me and tell me in the comments that I'm wrong, if you're going to be upset, by all means, please leave me a comment. I'll talk to you. I'll respond to all the comments that I get. Again, this is my opinion as a photographer who's been doing this for a long time, and as someone who is not a stranger to protests and rallies and marches and that kind of thing. I'm not saying that you're not allowed to take photographs or video when you're at a protest. That's not what I'm saying. What I am saying is this is not the moment for you to find your Pulitzer Prize winning photograph. Black pain is not for the use of white people. I don't know how else to say that more plainly. Black Americans are marching every day because they are being systematically targeted and murdered by police officers. They're fighting for their literal lives. You and I, I'm talking to my white audience here, you and I are not in danger like Black Americans are. So profiting or benefiting in any way from Black pain, Black suffering is wrong. It's not right. That was difficult for me to come to terms with in simpler terms. My first thought was like, you know what? I'm a photographer and it's my duty to tell stories, and this is a story. But this is a movement to make change and to save lives. It's not your opportunity to win awards. And I think that that's really important to consider. If you do go to protests and rallies, please, any photographs that you post online or share, you have to obscure the faces of protesters because there have been cases of retaliation by police for people who have been at protests, where police will go after the protests and seek out protesters using photographs of protests to target them. And that's a very real danger, and that needs to be mitigated as much as possible. So if you do insist on going to protests in March and you're going to take photographs. If you're going to share any of those things online, you need to obscure the faces, tattoos, distinguishable marks of anybody who's there for their safety. And potentially yours, but mostly for the safety of your subjects. All this being said, I've been to a dozen protests, maybe a little bit less. I've been going almost every day to protest in Oakland. And one of the things that struck me is how peaceful every protest has been. The Oakland Tech student organized protest that was from the Oakland Tech High School to the Frank Ogawa Plaza downtown a couple weeks ago was the first protest that I went to. And it was, I think, 3,500 students, if I remember correctly. I might get that number wrong, but it was somewhere around 3,500 students, which is a massive amount of students and people. So there were students and there were also members of the community there. I brought my camera. I only took a few pictures and they were from behind protesters and only a few from like under an overpass and a couple of signs. But for the most part, I kept my camera away because I was trying to amplify voices and show solidarity. I wasn't there to document what was happening. When we got there were speeches and speakers and people in show of solidarity. And it was a beautiful coming together of the community for this moment. There was a curfew that was enforced. It was enforced 30 minutes earlier than when they announced the curfew would be. And then at that point, police officers used force, excessive force, to disperse the crowds. Unfortunately, some people were arrested, some people were injured. Only when the police showed up, was there any violence. Up until that point, there was nothing but peace and love and unity. And the violence was one-sided. It was all from the police officers. Any looting or vandalism was not localized with the march. It was all done outside of the march, mostly by other people. There have been reports of undercover police officers causing damage. There are videos of police officers in uniform breaking out windows and bashing up their own cars to make protesters look bad, which is shameful, but not especially surprising, given that they have no problem murdering people. They seem to have no problem destroying their own property to fit their narrative, which is disgusting. Every single protest since that day has been peaceful. I was at another protest where we walked from Fruitvale in East Oakland all the way up into the hills to Mayor Libby Schaaf's house, which I wasn't sure how that was going to go because it was taking the Black Lives Matter movement directly to the residence of the Oakland mayor, which is bold. It's a very bold move. But I walked from the beginning to end. I got to Libby Schaaf's house with the rest of the protesters. It was a very peaceful, incredibly respectful show of unity and protest. Mayor Libby Schaaf did not make an appearance, but the crowd had policed itself. No one was allowed up on the porch. We did not deface anything on her property. Nothing was broken. Nothing was defaced in the neighborhood. We left unlit candles on the steps of her porch to show solidarity for the victims of police brutality. And that was it. Everyone left. We were there for, I believe, 30 minutes. It was a 45-minute walk to and from. We had speakers, we had moments of silence, and it was really beautiful. This was the only protest that I brought my video camera to, and the only reason I brought my video camera was to show how peaceful these protests have been and to show a perspective that doesn't paint the protesters as looters or violent criminals. I wanted to show the true side of the protest, so I compiled some of the video that I took, and you can take a look yourself.
We going to Libby's house. We going to Libby's house. We going to Libby's house. We going. lives matter. Black children matter. Say his name. Say his name. Tell me what community looks like. This is what community looks like. Do your job. Do your job. Protect the people. Do your fucking job. Bosco. Coward. Coward. Why? What's up?
Who are you serving? You gonna mace me tonight? Tear gassing us.
I haven't done any of that.
Get my money, my stomach ain't problems. Now, violent, keep it locked straight.
Baby don't know about the wobble. She know about the river dance. I do want to get lit. With the serious stuff.
Make a bag, get up.
He said, where's River Dance? Black lives matter. Black lives matter. Black lives matter. For those that are still coming, please move over so we can fit everybody in. So everybody can get an equal part of the view. I want to breathe. I want to breathe. And know this, and know this. That statement is very powerful. That statement is very, very powerful. We only have 30 minutes.
I see folks are already lighting their candles, have already lit their candles. So right now I just want to take a moment of silence, a moment of prayer.
And uniforms and cars and all these things, but we don't have anything that we need. Let me tell y'all again, they have just removed police from OUSD school.
Black children, black life, black future, black children.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
We won't have to close it out. And to my people, all the people all the way back there, thank you so much.
So as an active member of the film photography community and as someone who I would label myself as an activist, I'm asking you to please just consider the moment when you think you want to go out and document what's going on. Be responsible. Think about, why you're there, what you're doing, and if you're really trying to help the cause or if you're there for your own gain. If you're there for your own gain, please don't come. That's the end of it. If you're there to help support the cause and uplift Black voices, then please be respectful, be there in solidarity, don't be there for your own gain. With all that being said, a few fantastic YouTubers who are also film photographers got together, myself included, to start a fundraiser to sell prints where 100% of the proceeds will go to several funds that benefit different Black Lives Matter causes. I'm really happy to be a part of something like that. My perspective in it is that as a white male photographer, one of the ways that I can help this situation is with my labor and my money. So if I can use my labor and my work and the money that I would make from print sales to benefit this, then that's something that I want to do. So you can see that fundraiser. It is live right now. The link is in the description. If you want to go and buy a print, the prints are all very affordable. They're all very beautiful, and it's really fantastic to be involved in something like this with such fantastic photographers. So if you want to help with the cause, please go check out the fundraiser. I will also be linking other resources that you can help monetarily with the Black Lives Matter movement in the description if you want to check those out as well. That's pretty much it. I will continue to be going to protests. I will only bring a camera in order to hold the police accountable for their actions. So basically just taking photographs and video of the police who do show up to protests. And I think that's kind of the best thing that I can do as a photographer if I'm going to be at these protests. So I would consider these things if I were you. Again, this is my opinion. If you do want to argue with me, or if you want to debate or tell me I'm wrong, please leave a comment. I'll respond to everyone. Please keep it civil. In the end, this is about protecting humans, our fellow humans, people who are literally targeted and murdered by institutions that are meant to be in place to protect and serve us. Instead, they're being used to terrorize and murder. So, thank you guys for watching. I appreciate it. Stay safe, and Black Lives Matter.